guys, what's up? It's Kyle Murphy, and you're listening to Down in the Valley with Appeal.
There we go. All right.
Trying again?
Third time's a charm, you know, they say. So, welcome all. Welcome everybody to another episode of Down in the Valley, episode 11. We got, my name is Edson Ochoa, and you're listening to Down in the Valley, Beautiful Game Network podcast. Be sure to check them out at bgn.fm. Where you can check out other podcasts like the USL Show, Backchat Show, Sock Takes as well. And be sure to also check out our sponsors, BGN. Check out Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier of the USL, MLS, and NCAA. So, Sean, we're back after a week hiatus. And we want to start talking about what is... thank you, Harry.
We're good. Thanks, Harry.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, I can see it right here.
Oh, you have it. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I can't see it right there, so.
Yeah. So Sean and I actually went up to San Antonio.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Met up with Harry up there.
Yeah, and I want to give a big shout out actually to Harry for his hospitality.
Absolutely.
Over
Fantastic
there.
host.
Yeah. He paid for Sean's beer and everything.
Yeah, he did.
And
good beer.
Yeah.
Great.
And honestly, like he really wanted to be with us, hang out with us during the game, but the seats beside us were taken. So
yeah, I mean, you know, it was fine. He came and sat for maybe 10-15 minutes during the match and hung out with us for a little bit. But it was just, you know, it was great to just in general get out and you know, meet up with somebody other than Dynamo fans, other than RGV fans. You know, and just hang out and talk Dynamo, talk RGV, talk San Antonio. You know, it was just really good to get that experience in general. I don't make it out to a lot of away matches, as I'm sure most people don't in general. I think the only away matches I've ever actually been to have been Frisco away matches for Dynamo.
Yeah.
And to say that atmosphere is completely different is an understatement. Much better at San Antonio than Frisco, but that's like, you know, setting the bar really low.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure Sunday League atmospheres are better than Frisco's.
You're probably not kidding. I mean, it was good. The fans were not, the fans were not rude.
There wasn't any hostility.
Yeah,
not even.
And I kind of expected there to be some hostility. I mean, it's RGV's biggest rival by far, and to go in there and just be able to chill and watch the game, enjoy the game, and I mean, you weren't exactly quiet during the match, and so and they were accommodating and welcoming, and it was just good. And Harry and I did a scarf swap. Harry now has an official Peel scarf. Congratulations, Harry. And I now have a San Antonio scarf, as do you have a San Antonio scarf, which I know there are some that will be watching this later or listening later that they're gonna frown at you for having this scarf, just having it, let alone wearing it. Even if it was for only the walk into the stadium you were wearing. No, you left it in your car, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay, so he didn't wear it in the stadium. I'll give him credit for that. I did. I wore it in the stadium. I was wearing Dynamo gear with a San Antonio scarf. It was very awkward.
Conflicting.
Yeah, it was very conflicting. But it was it had been my first experience as a USL match in general. And, not to dwell on the match itself for very long, but it was a very good match to me. Because, watching it, from both sides, there was plenty of activity, plenty going on both ways, and it was great to see because both teams were, nobody really necessarily sat back and absorbed pressure. Both teams tried to go for it, and even though that ended up after 90 minutes in a draw, we'll just ignore that 30-minute after. But even though the 90 minutes ended up in a draw, it was a fantastic draw. It wasn't a boring draw by any stretch of the imagination, and there were plenty of observations we both made during the match for sure. We talked about them on Periscope Live, at halftime and then after the match, and then we'll go over some of those, I'm sure, here in a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned that both teams they weren't settling back and trying to see what the other team was going to do. Both teams actually tried to make their play style be relevant, not relevant, como like say in Spanish, imponer. They wanted to impose their play style on the field and make sure that like RGV wanted to dominate, as well as San Antonio wanted to dominate. And you could see it because there were actually some minutes where RGV looked very dangerous, and then all of a sudden the momentum shifted to San Antonio's side, and they started coming in. They were really close, actually. There was actually a couple of shots that were actually cleared out of the line by our defenders, both first half and the second half.
There were a couple of moments that were very nervy for the RGV backline / Matt Sanchez, I believe was who was in goal in that first period, first half. The one real takeaway that I had from this match, and I had said it to you, then, and I'll say it to you again. What makes me feel good about this match is that RGV held their own for 90 minutes.
Yes.
Last season, I don't know if we could have said that RGV would have held their own against San Antonio for 90 minutes. And, I asked you the question, I think it was live. I don't even remember if we were talking about it off, but I asked you the question, is that due to the improvement of RGV or due to the decline of San Antonio? And I asked Harry that same question too, actually. Both of you, told me that neither of you feel that San Antonio has declined a huge amount, but that RGV has kind of resurged to at least come back to, middle of the table, if you will, type, level of play, if not even higher than that. They looked, that second half, I mean, they were stringing together passes in a very comfortable, very fluid way. Mm-hmm. And that was, that was fantastic to see. But like I said, I mean, biggest takeaway for sure is RGV was competitive for 90 minutes, against a rival and a team that would have last year, beaten them for the full 90.
Yes.
And, made them suffer. So,
although, you know what, for the most part, almost all of the games between RGV and San Antonio have been very close, even through the talent disparity.
Season.
Yeah, even through the talent disparity. And it's just that motivation. But in the long run, San Antonio has the past season was much better than RGV. And you asked me that question that day, whether It's whether it was because RGV got better or if San Antonio got worse. And last weekend, we saw San Antonio annihilate Tulsa Roughnecks 5-1 in a friendly. So, which mean, and I believe that Jose Escalante got a brace in that game. And so that was also one of our focuses during the game. What would Escalante do? And honestly,
absolutely nothing.
He didn't do anything.
Kai, I think, was defending him for the majority of the time that he was out there. Kai negated just about everything that Jose Escalante brought to that match.
Yeah,
he really did.
Definitely. And no, we have to talk. Actually, let's actually talk about the starting 11.
Are we going positives first or negatives?
No, let's actually talk about the actual
starting 11.
Starting 11 for the RGV.
So the question I have for you, and I'm sure there will be others in watching that are curious as well. The starting 11 that we saw for RGV at San Antonio, is that the same starting 11 for the actual season, or is that okay?
No, because
I figured it'd be more
from what they just released, and we'll talk about that later. What they just released from the official lineup for 2018, there was actually a couple of players that started and are not going to actually be on the team.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know one of them.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and show you what the starting 11 for RGV was. So we had on goal, of course, we had Matt Sanchez on goal. So he played for I believe like the first half and a couple of minutes of the second half as well.
Yeah, he played quite a little ways into the second half, and he got, I think if I remember correctly, he got pulled after one kind of blunder where he didn't hold on to a ball that had come to him. Yeah, he tried to, but he spilled it in front of himself, and it almost turned into a goal.
He actually had a couple of those, and that was actually one of the plays where it was Connor Donovan that cleared it out of the line.
Yeah, Connor Donovan looked phenomenal.
Yeah,
and Kyle Adams next to him was just phenomenal.
Yeah, and I just feel that Matt Sanchez just isn't too confident right now, because that play you're talking about, he's coming out to get the ball, curls, over it, and somehow it manages to slip from his grasp straight to a San Antonio defender. If it wasn't that he did not get a good touch on it, you would have been talking about, that 1-0 for San Antonio.
Easily, yeah. I mean, San Antonio had a few chances, but it was remarkable how many times either Kyle Adams or Connor Donovan were there to clear it, whether it was off the line or just prevent the opposition attacker from getting to the ball and letting it go out. Whatever it was, they were very calm, they were very collected, they were very composed, and that just signals good things for the season. You need a strong pair of center backs in front of your goalkeeper, no matter who your goalkeeper is. If you don't have strong center backs in front of them, guiding and directing them, then at the end of the match, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have surrendered at least one goal, and so the attack would have to equal how many ever they surrender. In this case, with Kyle Adams and Connor Donovan there, I feel like that RGV won't have to necessarily make up those additional goals, that they're going to be able to, just keep going and keep, focus on the attack, but still have the comfort and the comfort to know that they're not going to have to worry about. Is your laptop about to die?
Yeah. Okay.
Still have the comfort to know that even if they do allow a counterattack, that Connor and Kyle probably have it covered, and we're probably just fine. One of the other things I noticed too, and I kind of already called this out about Kai and Jose, but Kai looks like a professional outside back to me. Kai was constantly in the right position, covering back when needed. He got into the attack. We saw some crosses before the match, and then when they were coming at us, that Kai's crosses are just amazing at times. Mm-hmm. And you don't always have that from an outside back, but something else.
No.
It's plugged in. I can see the light on. Yeah, you're good. It's on now. But my concern, and you know exactly where I'm going to go with this. My concern was that left back.
And let's go ahead and talk about the defenders.
Oh, man.
Here come the defenders. So the back four for that game was, we had Kai Green as a right back, Connor Donovan and Kyle Adams as center backs, and the guy you're talking about, Derek Luke, and left back.
So, question: is this the starting back four for RGV for the season?
It looks like that's actually going to be the starting back four.
So, you had mentioned that Luke is coming off a ACL injury and ACL surgery. That's definitely not him. There are certain things that I can look for, and that definitely was not him, to say the least. Derek's coming off a major injury and major surgery, and it showed. He was a step slow. He wasn't up to game speed. He struggled in defense against strong, fast attackers. Mm-hmm. He would get beat constantly. And the problem is when he pushes up and he gets beat, is he leaves the center backs to cover for him.
Yes.
And that was a problem, even with the Dynamo a couple of years back. That when they were under Coyle, it was the same kind of thing. So the question that needs to be had is Derek Luke the long-term solution there, or are we going to see potentially a Dynamo player sent back that might be able to cover for that area? We have, with the Dynamo, you've got George Malky, you've got Kevin Garcia, who can play left and right back. You've got, Beasley, obviously, and Remick. Mm-hmm. And then AJD when he gets in. I think what we'll see is when AJD is finally fully healthy and match fit, one of George Malky or
do you not see
Kevin Garcia, one of them is going to be sent back.
Do you not see AJD being sent to RGV to kind of get...
I mean, he'll get some minutes, but are you going to move him or Kai to the left? I'm assuming you're going to move Kai to the left.
I've seen Kai playing the left sometimes.
Okay, I can see that. That would make some sense. Mm-hmm. So if and maybe that's the way to go. Once AJD is ready for matches, send him to RGV for 3, 4, 5 matches, especially with Kevin Garcia / Machado / George Malky when he gets back, being able to kind of cover and play right back with the Dynamo solid enough that they can afford to let AJD spend 3, 4, 5 matches with RGV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Derek Luke actually played in 2016. He was signed in 2016 by FC Cincinnati. He appeared for 27 matches, and he had zero goals scored. Yeah. He went to college, Monmouth. Yep, the Monmouth Hawks. Yeah, Monmouth. He had 61 appearances in those 4 years with 3 goals, but it's going to be a long climb for him to get back to match fitness, because what we saw that game, mm-hmm. He lacked the fitness. And you mentioned that he looked tired after a short.
Oh yeah, he couldn't even go a full 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was struggling after 20. He looked tired, and you could just tell he was coming back from a major injury, type of thing. And I have concerns whenever you have a player coming off a major knee surgery and they're trying to get back. Sometimes they push too quick to come back, and sometimes they
get it re-injured.
Well, not the the re-injury is a big concern as well, but sometimes they push to get back and they're just never the same. Mm-hmm. It's not the re-injury, but they're just never able to overcome it. There's always that mental side of things that makes it tough to kind of figure out. And he seemed a little undersized to me too. I don't know, but maybe that was just me, but he seemed a little small.
Well, I mean, we are actually used to seeing, a bunch of tall defenders. And so I really don't think that if you really know what you're doing, that it, especially with outside backs, it's not really that much of an issue. Maybe with center backs, yes, but not with outside backs. So that was the 4 starting defenders. Mm-hmm. So now we're gonna go ahead and go with the midfielders. We had 4. So we had Chuy Enriquez on the left wing. Mm-hmm. We had Todd Warden and Jorginho James as central defensive midfielders. And then we had a new guy who we don't really have much information on. His name is John Montano, and he is a Colombian, number 12.
Absolutely.
And you had a lot to say about number 12 that day.
He struggled.
Let's just leave it at that.
Might be putting it nicely. There were 2 players that I pointed out to you consistently, constantly, over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And number 12 was definitely one of them. And the left back Derek Luke that we were talking about was another one. Thank you. He just, he looked okay for the first few minutes. And then he didn't have it technically to me. He didn't have the pace, the speed. On the ball, his passes were not as crisp. You know, he had a couple of moments where he'd link up, and then just a lot of times he just didn't. He either wasn't putting in the effort, or the match was too big for him, or something. But
I really want to say that it's the lack of chemistry.
You know, it is possible, obviously. Now, is he expected to be a starter for RGV?
I don't think so.
Okay. That's what I was assuming not.
Yes. Hi, Cass.
I mean, I guess we could ask Gerson when he comes on later, right?
Yeah. That's why we have him. We're gonna have him on. So, guys, be sure to share your video with your friends. Make sure to also subscribe to the new home of Down in the Valley on YouTube, and share it. Give it a like as well, because that's the only way we can start growing and making sure that we bring you the quality content that you all deserve. Want to give a big shout out to the people who are on right now and have participated in the chat. Obviously with Harry, who we've already talked about, and as well as my dad, Javier Ochoa. Thank you all for your support.
Hola, papa.
Be sure to share it with your friends. Now I'm wondering, where are all my RGV fans?
Did you tweet it out?
I tweeted it out like crazy.
Maybe they're all listening on Facebook. You're not looking at Facebook. You're only looking at YouTube.
Well, Facebook, actually, I had to bring it down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is there something going on tonight in RGV?
No, not really. I actually had the official Twitter of RGVFC retweeted.
Oh, you know what it is? We didn't tweet it out. I don't think it got tweeted out on the Peel. That usually helps a lot, because you get a lot of those same people coming in.
Yeah,
I'm sure there'll be some people that'll come in after the first hour or so. They usually trickle in it towards the end, but it is a little weird to only have a couple.
Yeah, but really appreciate your support.
Do yourself a favor and go ahead and reshare this video on Twitter and everything too. Sometimes resharing it'll help. It just takes one person sharing it to kind of viral it, as the case may be. So Harry, the one question I had for you, and I kind of asked you this, but I really didn't know how to word it at the time. You obviously were at the match. My question, and Edson's gonna not be happy with me because this is a RGV podcast, but what did you take away as far as San Antonio goes? Were there specific players on San Antonio's side that that stood out to you either in a positive or negative way? I'm really kind of curious, because I don't know San Antonio nearly as well as I know RGV, and I will be intrigued, to say the least, about what you have to say in regards to that for sure.
Dead silence.
It's only silent for a few seconds. You're good. We can wait a minute.
Have to add unofficial. There we go.
You're un-official. That's what you should do. Un-official.
Nice. All right. It is tweeted out.
So, who's out of curiosity, just while we're waiting for a few seconds here, who's the first match against?
What's up, Johnny? El Presidente is in the house.
Who's the first match against this weekend?
St. Louis.
St. Louis, that's right. That's right. I remember you saying that.
So we'll go ahead, in the meantime that we have that we get a response from Harry, let's go ahead and go with the attackers.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
We had the attackers. We had Pablo Aguilar. And I'm sure.
So these were the ones that started the match, right?
Yes.
So here's what I'm going to say about this: midfielders, and with the exception of Jorginho and
Todd
Wharton, and number 12, who we've already talked about for negative reasons.
I forgot. Oh, yeah, I did talk about Chuyin.
With Jorginho James and Todd Wharton, they looked fine. They looked good as D mids. They looked good as center mids. They were controlling possession. They were controlling the ball. They were cycling the ball when necessary. They fed open players. They did well. They did exactly what they needed to do. When it came to the attackers, though, especially the outside midfielders and your two attackers up top, I really didn't see much. It was not. When the second half came around, and whether this is because San Antonio was tired and not able to react and respond as quickly, whatever, and I mentioned this to you.
Yes.
Second half, our attackers looked crisp.
Yes.
That ball was flowing and moving and just off their feet really quick. In the first half, we were slow in possession. RGV was just, the buildup was just dead to me at times. Now, there were times we counterattacked and got the ball up there real quick.
Yes.
But there were a lot of times that there was a lot of delay moving the ball into the box, moving the ball up, as the case may be. I did ask you a question, Harry. Do I need to repeat it?
Yeah, go ahead and repeat it just in case.
Well, let me finish the thought,
Yeah.
and then I'll repeat it.
Sure, go ahead.
But, you know, what I'm trying to hint at is that I'm curious why Gerson, I mean, and maybe you have clues into this, is Gerson more likely to go with some of those attackers from the second half, or are we looking at the same attack from the first half as your starters?
That might actually be a good question for him when he comes on.
Laying flooring. That sounds exciting, Harry. So, Harry, the question I asked, just because I was curious, because I'm not a San Antonio person, I don't really follow San Antonio. Was there anybody from a San Antonio standpoint that stood out to you specifically, either negatively or positively for San Antonio? Because, again, I don't know San Antonio. He doesn't know San Antonio as well as you do. You're an avid, rabid fan. And so we were just curious. You know, you were there, we were there. We figured we'd throw you a bone and let you say something about that.
Yeah. So Pablo Aguilar actually looked really good out there.
Which one was he? Was he the one up top, or was he?
No.
Outside?
He's the central attacking midfielder.
Okay. Yes, he did. He had a lot of good moments. The three central midfielders looked fine. I had no problem with them, and I think that they have plenty of room to grow, developmentally speaking. But like I said, I mean, the outside wingers and the outside midfielders just they did nothing for me. They just really didn't. I wasn't impressed. At least in the first half. The second half, totally different situation.
Yeah. What I liked about Aguilar is like he had the intelligence to move the ball, you know, and carries defenders with him while he was dribbling.
He turned defenders a couple of times in
actually a couple
pretty
of times
impressive ways.
I think he was the one that got fouled by Mikey Lopez when he got the yellow.
Yeah.
He just drove him insane.
Yeah, he was very pest-like, is a good way to put it. You know, kind of like that gnat that's constantly buzzing around in the attack.
Yes.
You're fine. You're fine, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I feel like Aguilar is definitely a USL, at the very least, a USL-capable attacking midfielder. I really wish we'd have had the video on that. That was funny. Sit down. Our dog has decided to join us for this episode of RGV, or down in the RGV. Even if you can't see him, he's down here. I can feel him whacking me with his tail.
So Harry actually responded, and he says he thought the team was solid. He was happy with the connection with Guzman and Guadarrama, Sonny Guadarrama. Yes, I think the Ever Guzman and Sonny Guadarrama actually had a really good connection.
Who was that? Who was the last name Castillo, the short guy with the mask on?
Yes, he came into the second half.
Gosh, he is incredible on service. That guy, he's like a freaking rabid bulldog.
Yeah,
that's what he reminds me of. Like, the guy is just, I don't know, he's physical. And Diego who?
Diego Restrepo. No.
Oh, yeah, he did. Oh, man, Restrepo had a couple of moments where I thought we were going to score on Restrepo just because of bad goalkeeping.
Yeah. And so the last player that we need to talk about, actually, we don't really need to talk about him because, one, he's not in the roster anymore, and number two, he really didn't do anything.
Oh,
Quintanilla.
Quintanilla.
He was the other striker.
The other attacker?
Yes, he was the other attacker, and just really didn't offer anything to the team. And you mentioned the second half with Victor Garza coming in and all.
Oh, Victor Garza. Well, I mean, you know, from the moment that Victor came on, and you know, we called it out. He was warming up before the first half was even over.
Yes.
You know, he looked much more crisp. He was connected more in the attack. As soon as they brought him on, he was.
Yes, Gerson.
You can go ahead and answer. And it's time for Gerson. It's time for Late Night with Gerson.
All right, so we'll be talking later about it.
Yep.
Hello, Gerson. How are you?
I'm doing well, Edson. How's everything going with you?
Real good. We're just finishing talking about the match that we had against San Antonio.
Okay.
Yeah, we were talking about the starting 11, what we thought about how San Antonio played, and Sean here was giving his thoughts about it. But welcome to Down in the Valley.
Oh, thank you. So, what were his thoughts? I was not. I just got home, and so we were doing some stuff, and so I decided to call in. And but what were your thoughts?
Well, you know, Oh man, put me on the spot.
Absolutely. Hey, you guys are going to put me on the spot. I'm constantly being put in the spot.
Seems fair.
I don't think I've ever blushed on air, and I'm sitting here blushing on video here. That's awesome. What I was saying, a couple of players to call out that to me struggled a little bit. Derek Luke at left back. I think part of that is just him coming off that injury, getting back to match speed, seeing the game a little quicker. I felt like he unfortunately, he was pressing so high and trying so hard in the attack that there were times that I noticed that the San Antonio counterattack would just blow right by him, and it left Kyle Adams, who was playing left center back, and then Connor Donovan left to kind of clean up the mess. Now, don't get me wrong, they did a fantastic job cleaning up the mess, but obviously avoiding that whenever possible is probably the desire. He had moments where he tried. I really don't know what it was specifically, but I just noticed it in the first half that he had a few moments where he was trying to get more into the attack and looked okay. And then there were just, and I had called it out to Edson really even before halftime hit, that the more that I saw of him, and this is just being really honest, the more that I struggled to see him as a long-term starter. Now, I don't see him in practice, so that's just me based on, one match of really, 60, 70, no, I guess he played the full 90, of watching him play. But he did struggle to me. Now, with that said, I know San Antonio's, right winger / right midfielder is a pretty speedy, pacey guy who has some technical talent. But it was a little concerning for me. But at the same time, I can see where he can be that stopgap option until something else comes along. And I don't know, maybe you feel differently that he's a long-term player at that position. But for me, he definitely I think there's either it's because he's coming off an injury and there's still room to grow into that position but grow into that match fitness that maybe we need to see in the next few matches, or it's just that maybe his ceiling is not as high as I would like. Now again, my comfort level when it comes to soccer is MLS. I'm a rabid MLS fan, so maybe I have higher aspirations for some of these players than USL level per se. But for me, he just did not at that point in that match appear to be a USL level left back.
Okay. Well, he has been because of injury coming back. He had been last year pretty much missing. The previous year when he played for Indianapolis, in which they had a very successful run, he was their starting. He was their starting left back. With that, I agree with you. I think that there was some moments in which some defensive mishaps happened, but I think you also have to look at what Jesus was doing defensively. They weren't in tune, and there's a lot of times in which Luke was getting called 2v1, which he should have been, and that was just the inability of Jesus helping out and making things a little bit more obvious on the defensive end. There were also times in which central midfielders would make him run deep, and so Luke was getting caught in no man's land. And I agree. I think that he needs more matches. He needs a lot more continuity. It wasn't one of the better performances. And at that point, though, when we went back and looked at the film, there were a lot of things that he did well, and there were a lot of moments in which he got kind of just left isolated on an island where he was 1 against 2. And there were even times when it was 1 against 3 because other guys were not doing their job. So it's kind of tough to and listen, San Antonio, the players that they have down there are not they're not too shabby. So it was really a tall order that we as a team needed to be a little bit better. Even though we improved, I think on a whole defensively, that was the one area in which it was a big concern for us.
Absolutely. So one other thing that I noted, actually there's two more things that I noted. I did like a lot the center back pairing of Kyle Adams and Connor Donovan. I thought they were as physical as they needed to be, but not too physical. I felt that they recovered nicely when they had to recover. There were a few mishaps, but for a couple of guys that haven't really played a whole lot together, starting to get minutes together, learning the communication between each other. You definitely could see that beginning to build. But one thing that I called out to Edson and that he kind of called out to me, one thing I've noticed with the Dynamo is you have kind of this pairing between Felipe Senderos and Adolfo Machado. Senderos is the vocal commander on that back line, and what I noticed during that San Antonio match is Connor Donovan is kind of that same type of center back. He's very vocal. He's trying to call out to his teammates where they need to be, making sure everybody's in the correct position depending on who's coming at them in attack or who's pushing up higher. He was doing that level of work that I could see, and that tells me, even though I already knew this, but that tells me from a perspective, viewing the match, that he is one of those players that he wants to be two things. One, he wants to be a leader on the pitch, but number two, he knows that he needs to make sure that back line stays connected, that everybody is talking and communicating constantly, and nobody, he doesn't want anybody not holding their weight along that back line, and really even in front of him, even into the defensive midfielders. And I was just curious if that's kind of the way you perceive him as well, as kind of that vocal leader on the back line.
He's been like that since he was 14 years old. Just mouthy, just yaps and yaps and yaps. The only thing is that now he makes a lot more sense because he's figured it out. So we've had him when I was the coach of the 14 national team. So we've had him. So I've had experience with him at the 14, 15, and with the U17 national team. So I've known him for a while. So we had the opportunity to be able to bring him in with us after he's had he's also coming out of an injury. We knew that he would be a pretty good leader in the back line. I think that in the back line and our center backs are probably is going to be the most competitive position for all of us. Between we have Kyle Adams, who's a very good New Zealander coming out of college, who's just a very good defender and a very good passer of the ball. Obviously, we just finished talking about Connor, but then we also have Castellanos, who, even though he's 19 and the youngest out of the bunch, if you want to talk about talking and being able to organize, he actually is pretty good also. I mean, there's still some things he needs to learn, but he's very, very bright. And then coming back from last year is Omar, who I think once Omar starts opening up and getting out of his shell, talking, I mean, he's extremely technical, very hard on the tackle, reads the game well. He just needs to, and I think he understands more. He just doesn't. I don't know if it's just being shy or his it's just his quiet personality. But he's got to come out of that shell. But he's a very good defender. So with us, I think we have four guys where I think we're pretty comfortable with. I mean, I think yes, you're right. Right now, the pairing of Kyle and Donovan has been working very well. And even though they really haven't been working together long because Connor was with the first team with Houston for the majority of the preseason. So it's going to be interesting, which two, and we mixed them around, and all four have played well with each other. So it's an extremely exciting part of our defense, and I think it's extremely solid right now with the addition of obviously the other outside backs that are ahead. I mean, right now we feel that Kai is our starting right back. He's a little bit ahead of Padilla, but it's not by much. Padilla is he just came down. He's one of our draft choices, and extremely talented also. And then I think Luke is just more experienced and a little savvier than Sullivan right now, although Sullivan's probably one of the better athletes on the team. So the backline's it'll be pretty strong, and we'll have options, and no one can feel comfortable because if they do, their spot will be taken relatively quick. So it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I was about to say, that sounds like one of those problems you're like, oh, man, I've got to figure out which center backs I'm going to start. Darn, that sounds so terrible.
And our goalies right now, it's going to be a disaster trying to figure out who's going to play and who isn't, because we feel that we have two quality goalies with Sanchez and Corti. So, we have one that's with the Puerto Rican national team who was training and almost had a contract until he had an injury with DC United. And then we have another one who just won 3 national championships in a row. So it's it's going to be a tall order, but it's much better because I know that was something of concern by Wilmer, Paul, and then the guys coming back. That our goalkeeper situation wasn't as solid as it needed to be. So we went out and made an effort to make sure we had a very good goalkeeping line.
And then one other observation I made during the match, and I think you'll appreciate this, I noticed the attack in the second half was more fluid, a lot of one-touch passing, a lot of triangle passing going on near the box and in the box. And I really liked seeing that. It was a little less counter-attacky and just in terms of lobbing the ball forward and trying to get a specific player up top forward, like Victor Garza, but it was flowing through your outside midfielders into the box. And it was causing some serious havoc for San Antonio in that second half. They were back on their heels a little bit for a good 10, 15 minutes once those players had come in the second half. So are those players that came in the second half, are they more depth players? Or was that just, in your opinion, because maybe San Antonio was a little tired at that point since they hadn't made any subs up till then, and just fresh legs coming on and able to push at them harder?
No, it was fantastic coaching by me. That's what it was. No. It was more along the lines. I think a combination of everything. I think we talked about it. I think some of the jitters were out of it. We talked to the whole group and said, listen, it's, and we had said it all along. This is not about guys. This is still part of us forming ourselves as a team, and it's part about having personality and playing well. I mean, we want to be a defensive, solid team, but we want to make sure that we have the ball and that we create opportunities. We want to be able to attack. Obviously, you start from the back and moving forward because you can't just bleed out easy goals. Otherwise, you're not going to give yourself a chance to win games. If you just, if you think that you're just going to, outpunch someone else. I don't think right now we have the firepower offensively, or we're not we're not connected offensively just yet. So, the back line needs to be solid. But when we have the ball, we want to make sure that guys are creative, that guys are feel confident with the ball. More importantly, that they play in a cohesive unit, using the ball, moving the ball, combining with passes and moving the ball a lot faster. I mean, the ball never gets tired. And if we can combine with numbers, it's much easier. And so we made it a conscious effort to speak to the group in regards to having that. And just not to panic, that if they lost the ball, just get back and defend. And the mistakes will be made, and mistakes are going to happen. And it's okay. It's, this is where we learn from it. And so that's why you have these scrimmages. That's why you have these games to prepare yourself. And I mean, if we're going to panic in scrimmages and we're going to panic on preseason games, then what's this going to look like during the regular season? So, we got to knock that out of our system. And I felt that, every game we've done so, a little bit more and more each time. Now it's just a matter of us being able to score some goals, which is obviously the hardest thing to do in soccer.
So with that said, that kind of leads into one of the questions that I had / a few other people had. What are you trying to instill as the identity of RGV as a team? Whether it's just this season or long term, what is that identity that you're trying to instill?
Well, the identity is we want to be a organized team. So we want to be a defensively organized team that also likes to keep the ball and attack, and we want to be able to score goals. I want to, mind you, fellas, I was an offensive player. I was an attacking player, so I love goals. But I don't like giving up goals. I do not believe, bleeding goals out. Absolutely. So. And that also goes with what we're doing with Houston. We need to mimic what they're doing, the way they're playing, where they're organized, but they want to keep the ball and attack. And that's something that we've seen. I mean, they've scored 5 goals in 2 games, and even throughout the preseason. And so they were able to. And even the game they lost last weekend against Whitecaps, they outpossessed, they outshot, they had more corners, they had everything, and that's where we want to be. And that's what we're trying to mimic, because we want our guys to be able to entertain our fans, but also be prepared themselves to play whenever they move up to the first team in Houston, and just blend right in.
So going back, another question that was actually asked by the fans. Actually, one person is asking, what it will be the main focus of our outside backs, or is it going to be to join the attack, or will they stay back and defend?
No. Every position has certain responsibilities. So when you're a defender, you're primarily a defender, and through good defending, then you earn the right to attack. So when we're solid and we're organized and we have things, then I want them attacking, and I want them getting crosses, and I want us to be able to make sure that we create chances. I want them having assists, and there's a goal that we have in which we want to get X amount of crosses per game on each side, and for those guys to get into the attacking third. However, if they're not defending well, if they're only attacking and leaving huge holes in which we're going to get counter and give up goals, then that's irresponsible. So, we want them attacking. Don't get me wrong, because whenever outside backs attack out wide, it's difficult and it spreads the team out and it gives us more options. But they're not just going to play as attacking players and not defend. That's not what we're looking for.
So basically, not just for the sake of attacking.
No. It's not. You're not just attacking for the sake. No, we defend and then we attack it, and there need to be options. And listen, we are mandating that they get forward, that they get behind the defense, and make sure. But we also have to be clinical when we're in the back line. And right now, through our practices and stuff, we realize that our crossing needs to improve, and that our passing, even in the final third, needs to improve. Because what good is it if you're getting down there and you're losing the ball and you're creating and you're leaving huge holes in the back? So that's not. So they need to be efficient. And like we said, if you're efficient, you earn that right. Just like in any sport. I mean, you notice in basketball, who shoots the ball are the guys who work at it, who are good at it. Other guys don't shoot as much because they're not good. So if you're a good crosser of the ball, if you're getting into the attack and you're being productive, then we want you to attack more, because if we're attacking, that means we're defending less. But that doesn't mean that we forget about defending,
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So another question that I wanted to ask is actually it's a couple. So for you.
So one or a couple? Come on, man.
Okay.
What's going on?
All right. What was our biggest improvement throughout all this preseason, and what do you think we need to work on most? And I think
our biggest improvement has been our organization defensively. And obviously it showed whenever we played against the bigger teams, the pro teams. So when we played Houston and when we played Motagua, we bled out goals. So defensively, we were a disaster. And I think that we have become so much more organized. We've become more cohesive. We defend in numbers. We're not just running around with our heads cut off. And so we're actually defending in blocks. And so guys are starting to realize and learn their responsibilities because they've worked hard. It's just we weren't working very as a unit, and we weren't very smart about how we were defending. And that's the one thing that I'm pleased the most, so that we are defending better. And I think we've shown that when, in the last few games, we had a couple of shout-outs, and then even against San Antonio where, they had their chances, and every team's going to create chances, but I think we minimized that a lot. And so that's the one thing I'm happy about. The thing that we need to work on is in the final third is combining, having more combinations in the offensive third, not just in the midfield or in our defensive third, creating some chances. And at the end is we're not going to win games if we don't score. So we need to do a better job as far as putting the ball in the back of the net. So which is the hardest thing to do. And I think that the one thing that we can, as coaches, we can really work on a lot is our defensive shape and our organization. A lot of times, we can put them, we can train, we can do a lot of things to prepare them to score. But what happens when you're in front of the goal? And are you calm and collected? Are you, are you able to shoot when it's the right time to shoot? Are you able to pass the ball off? The weight of the pass? All of those things are important that we need to get better at. And a lot of that also comes with just guys playing with each other, relationships with certain guys who play better with certain guys, and understanding each other. So that'll take a little bit more time. And so, but We know that that's something that we need to improve on, and that's something that we've been touching on, particularly the last couple, the last week or two.
Sounds really, really promising, and like I've told you before, is like we know that we believe that we have the right person in charge for this team for this 2018 season, and hopefully that the rest of the fans get that idea by listening. All these interviews that you've been giving to the media, talking about what we've been working on and everything else. And so, do you have a message to the fans that are listening right now on this podcast, as well as the ones who will listen in the future?
No, yeah. The one thing is that we need our fans. We need the support. It's unbelievable the energy that the fans give you when you're playing. You know what I mean? And that's something that I understood when I was a player myself. That when you feel, sometimes you're tired. Sometimes things are not looking so great. But when you hear and when you feel the energy and you're hearing people cheering and wanting you to do well, sometimes they will you to just to do well and to play better. Now, is it always going to be the case? No, that's not going to be the case, because there'll be games in which it's just not there, and that happens. You know what I mean? The one thing is that what we want is, if that's going to happen, it's hopefully it happens away. But when we're home, that doesn't happen in front of our own crowd, in front of our home fans. We need to make sure that any team that comes to our stadium feels it. There's a little fear behind it, not only from our play, not only from our team, but also because our fans are behind us, and that's an incredible feeling. Now, the only thing I can promise the fans is that we're going to have a team that doesn't give up. We're going to have a team that's going to work hard, that is going to represent, what this area is about, and that's important to me. That any fan that leaves our stadium, whether it's a win, loss, or draw, realizes that our team left everything on the field. And I think that if we're capable of doing that, we're gonna have more success than not. Are we looking to go on? I mean, it's difficult to ever go undefeated at home. That's not easy. But that's what we're striving for. We're striving that we win every game at home, and that's the goal. The goal is we want to make the game. We want to be an attacking team, and we want to pull off victories. Now, whether that happens or not, we'll see in the next. We'll see what happens throughout the season. But that's the goal. That's the ambition, and that's what we want. So, and that's the message that has been dictated to the players. And so, that's our mentality, and we'll see if we're capable of doing that. I mean, we're working towards it every day, and that's what we're looking to do.
Well, we really appreciate Gerson for coming on our show. You have a lot of time or a lot of stuff on your schedule, and for you to make time to come and talk to us, to talk to the fans of RGV. We really, really appreciate it. And we actually have someone saying hi all the way from New Jersey. Judy says, hi, Gerson, listening from New Jersey. Mucha suerte este viernes. So.
I know exactly who that is.
So.
I'm sure you guys do too.
Yeah.
Yes. Please tell her I love her very much. That's my sister-in-law. She's a big supporter, and thank you very much.
Not a problem. Thank you for coming on, and best of luck on Friday.
Please tell her to give a big kiss to my nieces for me, please.
So Judy, you heard him. Big kiss to his nieces. So good luck this Friday. Sadly, I won't be able to go because of work, but I'll be rooting all the way here in Houston, of course.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me, and we'll hope to see as many fans as we can on Friday.
Will do. Have a good night, Gerson, and go Toros, and say hi to all the guys down there for me.
Thanks, Gerson.
I definitely will. Take care, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Goodbye. So, what you think?
Right man in charge, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely.
What he had to say was on point. I mean, you can't sacrifice attack. I mean, you can't sacrifice defense for attack. If you are, you're going to give up a ton of goals, and you're going to struggle to get back into the matches. You may have a couple you get out in front real early, but then you're just going to struggle. When they counter and they score on you, you're gonna struggle. So I like that. I liked what he had to say about the outside backs. And I liked his points about Derek. Derek Luke. I felt that those were very pointed and very purposeful.
And it never came into our minds from where we were looking at it, because we were like behind the goal line and down on field level. We didn't see those.
It was hard to see from a tactical standpoint.
Yes.
Who was supposed to be covering who. I do think there were times that Luke was Derek was definitely stuck out on an island. Kind of by himself out there on the, like I said, 3v1s, 2v1s.
Yes.
And I think, I know Gerson saw the times that I'm talking about where he wasn't left on an island and he just made a bad decision. But I also think Gerson, just listening to him, because he's got that understanding of the game at such a deep level, that when you can impart that to your players, it speaks volumes to the players. The players are going to listen to what you have to say. They're going to be more open to you giving direction and instruction, whether it's mid-match, during a match, whether it's you yelling from the sideline or not. They're going to be open to listening to what you have to say, and they're not just going to ignore you because they feel like you're just yelling for the sake of yelling.
Yes.
They're actually going to kind of tune into that, what you have to say, because they know that you're there not to harass them, but you're there to help them become better players. And then I also liked what he had to say about the identity of the team. The identity of the team really ultimately comes down to we're going to work hard, and we're going to be organized. And, a lot of coaches don't really pay much attention to the organization side of it, being an organized team. Organization and defense and offense are very similar at times, but they're also very different. And being able to instill that in your players, it's a challenge. And, we saw it really last match against San Antonio, where you could see it was, and I haven't seen the other RGV preseason scrimmages or anything like that, but just from talking to you, they were a dramatically better team from last year.
Definitely.
And all that is just really Gerson. I mean, there's a couple of players that have been swapped out, but I mean, that's a lot of just Gerson showing that he knows the game in a way to get the players to understand it and adapt it and adopt his style.
And not only that, the fact that very few players from last season stayed. And so you have a bunch of new guys who are trying to learn a completely different system, trying to get back into match fitness in the case of Derek Luke. And just to the fact that at such a short amount of time, from them being in preseason, seeing such a dramatic improvement in the chemistry, in the talent that these players have, that falls also on the coach.
Yeah. So the one thing I got out of what he was saying, well, I mean, obviously I got plenty else, but the one thing that stands out to me, and I kind of caught it as he was talking about it, and I wanted to call it out, so when he goes back and listens to this later, he can smile. He wants to be able to, as a coach and as a coaching staff, he wants to allow players and push players to play to their strengths, as opposed to trying to oppose the other team's strengths, and trying to kind of diminish your weaknesses. He wants players that are, he said it, if you're a good crosser of the ball, we want to make sure you're crossing the ball. If you're good at through balls and passing on the ground, we want to make sure you're doing that. That makes sense, because you want players to highlight their strengths, because you're getting the most out of the players that you have, no matter the level of talent, no matter how good those players are. If you can maximize what value you get out of them, then you're getting the absolute most you can get out of your team. And I think one of the things that we noticed also in the match is that this team is the sum of its parts. Yeah. There's not necessarily a lot of superstar parts on this team, but what you have is you have a team that's operating like a team, defending like a team. He mentioned that defenders were falling in behind each other to help cover the opposition coming at them in attack. You had your defensive mids. If they were up high, you had defenders kind of, shifting accordingly. And I think that's very important, because you're not necessarily going to have superstars on your team that are going to be driving your team to the championship. But if your team plays as a team first, and they focus on organization and defending as a team, organized defense, if they focus on attacking as a team, I guarantee you that this team is going to be successful and going to be successful in the ways that Gerson wants. And it's no surprise. He's a great coach. He has, like I said, he's got that soccer mind. He's got that soccer understanding. That's, I think, going to help this team become as good as they possibly can be. And I look forward to keeping up with the team as much as possible and maybe making 1 or 2 trips out to watch some matches with you or otherwise. And so, I don't know. That's just kind of what I take away from that conversation, and I hope I get to have more of those. He's a fantastic individual to talk to.
Oh, definitely, and hopefully he we'll be able to have him back on as the season progresses. So, going back to the San Antonio match, any other thoughts?
No, that was really about it.
Yeah,
I didn't have anything else. Sorry. No, actually, there is one thing. I liked their stadium. I did. I liked the way that it was set up. It wasn't great, but it was better than the Frisco Stadium, of course.
Well,
Harry liked it too.
Thank you, Harry.
So it of course being 2 Toyota stadiums, they both are Toyota Field and Toyota Stadium. They both are reminiscent of each other, and I kind of mentioned this. San Antonio's Toyota Field reminds me of a kind of smaller, toned down version of Toyota Stadium in Frisco, and it's just to me, I like the way it was set up because it felt like Harry's going to kill me for saying that. It felt like a minor league soccer team stadium. It really did. It had that feel to it to me. Whereas when I go to Frisco, I feel like I'm in a high school football stadium. And I mean that honestly. And to be fair, it is a high school football stadium as well. But at San Antonio's, it just feels like a soccer stadium first. And it feels like, you go in and it feels like a soccer stadium. Even if even if it does feel like a minor league soccer stadium. I went in and it was like, this is soccer. Yes. When we went to Frisco, myself and a bunch of other people with the Dynamo away supporters and everything, you felt like you were walking into something other than a soccer stadium. So I just wanted to call that out, and I know Harry actually could probably appreciate that. But at the end of the day, that was one of my big takeaways was feeling like that. Yeah, Harry, that's exactly what I'm referring to. It's it feels like, and it's a lower level soccer stadium.
And the atmosphere is pretty great, actually.
But the atmosphere there was pretty great, and really, as many fans as they had showed up. I mean, no, granted, it wasn't a sellout, but it's also a preseason scrimmage match. It wasn't a, this wasn't a. You were never going to have a sellout in the preseason unless these teams have hit that rivalry level where you just know they're all going to go at each other and. Like a slugfest type thing, but this was never going to be.
And
that
to
way.
Be fair, with the amount of years that both clubs have been existing, we're not there yet.
No, and the rivalry is going to take a while to get there. But Harry, you're right. That's I didn't mean minor league in that way. I meant lower level soccer stadium, and it's. I mean, it felt good going in there. It really did, and it was like I said. I mean, it was a very soccer atmosphere. It wasn't. Like I said, when I go into the Frisco Stadium, it's like I'm in a soccer stadium. This is soccer. This is not what I think of when I think.
It's not organic.
It's like suburb soccer.
Yeah.
It was awkward going to Frisco, but it's also Frisco.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hop away now and leave you to RGV for the rest of your thing, but. Again, when Gerson listens to this back, thank you, Gerson, for definitely calling in, and I appreciate you letting me share my observations. Felt really cool, to be honest with you. And I appreciate you engaging and being willing to talk at that level, and being willing to listen to input and things like that. That's a sign of a coach who understands, what his job and role is, and what his purpose is as a coach.
Yes.
And that's Gerson. There's not many people. Soccer or otherwise that get that at any point in their career, let alone this, at this stage of his career. So definitely wanted to call that out.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, man. And we'll see each other next time, which is in a couple of minutes after we finish.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go help somebody with taxes.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Oh, totally fun. We should take a break.
All right. So.
I mean, we're at the hour mark, right?
Yes, we definitely are.
Well past the hour mark.
All right. So when we come back from break, we will be talking with Mitch Morice from the This Is Silly podcast, and also a member of the St. Louligans. And we're going to be talking about this Friday's match, the home opener between RGVFC and St. Louis FC. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Don't go away. Gerson Echeverry, and you're listening to Down at the Valley with the People. All right, guys, welcome back to part 2 of this episode 11 of Down in the Valley. We have a special guest, like I said before we went on break. We have Mitch Morice from the This Is Silly podcast. Mitch, how are you doing, man?
Good, man. How about you? It's game week.
Oh, definitely. I'm so stoked for it. And honestly, it didn't feel as dragging as other years, at least for me. I feel like these days it went by so quickly between the end of the season and the home opener, and that's because we did not even make it to playoffs.
We didn't either, and we had the off-season drama of getting rid of the coach he shall not be named. So we had a really long off-season here, and it really was a struggle.
So what I was actually reading is that you all also started from scratch as far as your roster.
Pretty much. There was only, 3 or 4 carryovers, and one of them ended up moving out. Merkovich, he ended up moving out at the last moment, so to speak. So yeah, there's a heavy turnover. We kept Christian Valesky, who was one of our top scorers. He was definitely one that we wanted to see kept. But the big names were brought in the off season, and that really has made a difference, I think.
So you mentioned that you all brought in a new coach. What were your initial thoughts on him?
It was interesting because he wasn't a big name. He wasn't the name that we had before, and the names that were being bandied around. But we were excited once we kind of got to learn a little bit of his pedigree, and especially after we got to meet him, we were lucky enough to be at the introduction of him, and he was on our podcast, and talking to him, he kept preaching responsibility and accountability. Mm-hmm. That was the 2 words he kept repeating every single time. And you started to hear his game plan and what he expects. And it's really that kind of coach that I think not only do players want to play for, but fans want to see, because it's very much a system where it's accountable but aggressive. And we've sorely missed that here in St. Louis.
Definitely. So in your words, what were the reasons? Was it really that bad with this previous he who shall not be named head coach? Or what was it that gained him that hatred from the fans?
It's weird because coming in, he had the pedigree. We all knew Pretty's history. He was the big name in the off season that nobody saw coming. So for the front office to pull it off, it was ridiculous. But but then we started to see little nuances, and we saw the reported diva act very early. But the attitude of the fans was, you can be a diva if you win. Mm-hmm. And as time went on, and we came out of the gate strong, the first 5 games were fantastic, and then we saw just a breaking down of the system. The system wasn't working, and they kept going at it. Mm-hmm. And we heard players getting in the doghouse for no reason, essentially, or for reasons that maybe we didn't see. And the team just never seemed to have a chemistry, never seemed to gel. And when the coach doesn't answer questions, doesn't go to the public, doesn't go on radio shows, doesn't, I'm not saying our podcast is the be all end all, but, to not even give us 5 minutes, you start to say, okay, why can't you be accountable? And there became rumors about him being upset that we didn't get an MLS team, and that was kind of his goal. And as the season wore on, and we kept having a running joke that every play was back into the left. If a guy dribbled up and he got stuck, he didn't look for creativity, he didn't look for progression. Immediately it went back to the defenders. Mm-hmm. And you saw a team that was collapsing. And one of the end games, this is not a joke, he had 6 defenders in at one point in time. Wow. Talk about parking the bus. When you need wins and he's parking the bus, it was mind-numbing and frustrating. And there was, no, like I said, no accountability, no questions. It got to the point where at the end of the season, we couldn't get him out fast enough from a fan perspective.
So would you say that he was self-hijacking the team or to destroy it for some selfish reasons? Did you get that vibe?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just, the phrase I kept using on our show was from the 1980 Olympic hockey team, when the Russians were losing, and they said, "Why isn't he making a change?" And they said, "He doesn't know how to lose." And I think that was Precky's biggest problem. He didn't know how to lose. He didn't know how to struggle. And when his methods weren't working, he doubled down harder instead of exploring options. And I think the problem was is that I think he got in his own way most of the time. Yeah. And it collapsed, and you saw it on the players' faces, and that was the saddest part.
Yeah, because once you lose the locker room, it's very hard to get it back, and so you just have to get rid of that bad apple. And let's go ahead and leave that behind. So, what are
gladly?
What are your thoughts on this team now? What have you seen from St. Louis in this preseason?
Well, the biggest thing is that accountability. We're seeing character guys being brought in. Austin Martz and the return of Sam Fink from Oklahoma. Corey Herzog, Sean Reynolds. You're seeing all these guys that are proven effective leaders, proven effective players. They're not veterans as in long in the tooth. They're veterans as in experience. So you're seeing this system already develop. And through these preseason games, we're seeing that progressive, attacking football that we want to see. We're seeing players that go for it or are given an opportunity to be creative, but yet still be responsible defensively. It's very much the style of football that we've been craving terribly. I think that it's going to be a lot more open and exciting. We're seeing a lot more play from the wings, which we've never seen. It's definitely a much more open, flowing style of play while still being responsible.
So, what teams have you played in this preseason?
So this past weekend we played Louisville, since we don't get to play them in our in the season with them being in the Eastern Conference. So we had a friendly against them, and that was Saturday, and that was a great game. They're the defending champs. It was both teams rolling out the full squads, and it was a good game. It was back and forth. It was strong. There was mistakes, but it wasn't bad mistakes. It was just good effective ball. We played FC Denver from the Colorado Premier League. We have a partnership with them now where we're going to work with them on development. They came here for a two series game. We played SIUE, who's a local powerhouse here at college. We didn't go too terribly big this year in terms of playing other teams. It was more about seeing the team develop the chemistry, see the make it their home, and it seems to have worked so far.
So basically, just like you can see, kind of like in boxing terms, the sparring, just to get the feel of the team and with each other.
Yes, absolutely. We were real. FC Denver, they're like I said, Colorado Premier League, so they're probably not at that level that you want to really see. But we got a great opportunity to see the in and outs, the way the system's going to work and develop, and see guys making connections. So, but as great as those sparring partners were, like I said, going up against Louisville on Saturday, that's no joke. That shows that we're ready for the season.
Yeah, that's a good thing after that. Disaster. So, so what are your thoughts on this Friday's game?
Well, first of all, we're obviously excited, because it's the season. But I think it's going to be interesting. Our starting goaltender Gomez is out with an injury. He's back in training. He was, a big signing in the off season, but it sounds like he won't miss too many more games. So Jake Fenlinson's in goal. Jake's definitely an athletic, talented goalie, but doesn't quite have a lot of the top flight experience, but that doesn't seem to matter for us a lot of times. Our back line is very solid. It looks like we're going to be playing maybe three back or three with a sweeper kind of thing.
Yes.
But, it's definitely going to be a spread out attack that we're looking forward to seeing. Like I said, you'll see a lot of play. My personal favorite guy out there right now is Austin Martz. He's shorter, but he is one of the fastest players I've ever watched. You'll see him break down that right wing, getting the balls that he thought were going out of bounds. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but once he gets there, he makes great crosses. So we're still wondering who's going to be the starting strikers. We've got depth this year. Obviously, Crowley Herzog's a known entity. Mm-hmm. Christian Walewski back from last year. Kyle Gregg, Kadeem Dakers from Louisville and Cincinnati. We've got depth. There's a lot of guys vying for that spot, and that's going to be the most interesting aspect is seeing who gets up there, who's clicking, and who's getting some action.
Yeah, definitely. So you think that do you see St. Louis FC kind of waiting and expected to see what Toros brings to the table, or do you see them trying to be more possessive of the ball, trying to be the team in charge out on the field?
I think you definitely will see an attacking possession-based game. There's definitely a high press going on, but again, it's not overcommitting. It's definitely they want to dictate the pace of the game and the flow, and they're going to try to put their print on it real quickly.
All right. Now, you also got to remember you're talking about South Texas. So I was back there. I went back there last weekend, and believe me, and it actually came out on, like, somebody shared it on Twitter that McAllen, Texas was the first official weather station to make it to 100 degrees this year. So,
oh my.
Yes. So
wow.
That is going to be something that St. Louis is going to have to realize that if they're unlucky, we might get some of that hot South Texas summer down there on Friday. But although if I'm pretty sure it's not. But so are the St. Louligans going to be making the trip down to South Texas?
Not in mass. I think this one kind of snuck up on us. This was one of the trips that we wanted to make, but unfortunately, being the first game of the season, kind of snuck up on us. People weren't able to get time off from work, and having a Friday night game kind of stunk up. But I do believe that we've got a couple people going down. I think at our AGM we figured out that we're only going to have like one game that there's not going to be people in attendance at. So. I know that there's going to be a couple people down there. I'm not quite certain who. I didn't catch names.
Yes.
I think, like I said, you should see somebody down there with the Louligans on tour banner.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be sure to tell Johnny, our president, our Stampede president, to give them the best reception ever. And I'm sure you'll find this to be very welcoming to the St. Louligans. So
as long as you're welcoming on the field. That's all I care about.
No, highly doubt it. So actually, I'm actually looking at the weather, and it might not be 100, but the high for Friday afternoon will be 91. And because the day before is going to be rainy, expect high humidity. So it's going to be tough.
That'll prepare them for August in St. Louis at least, because we're usually high 90s with a lot of humidity. So it's a good preparation for the summer then.
Yeah, definitely. So you got anything else you want to add?
No, like I said, I'm excited for the season to get started. I wish we were playing you guys later on in the year. Would have been a good trip for us, but
yes.
USL gods were not favorable to us in scheduling this year, and we're getting kind of used to it. But
we talked about it last time.
Yeah, you know what? I look at it this way: it's better than playing in Phoenix in August. So
that is definitely true. So, any predictions? Score predictions?
We talked about it on the show last night when we did ours. I think Brad had 2-1. I think Bird had 2-0, and I think I had 3-1 us. So we're expecting some goals. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Frankly, I'm expecting, if it's not a tie, then it'll probably be a 2-1 for the Toros. But I'm leaning more of a tie, maybe 1-1 or 0-0, because
challenge is on here.
Oh, definitely, because from what I've seen from the Toros, they're getting really good defensively as well. We still haven't gotten the attack at its full potential, so that's why I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. And it's probably more definitely going to be a tie. But then again, it's just me. I thought Tigres was going to make it past Toronto, and they didn't.
So here in our private Facebook group, looks like Jim Bellinger is one of our Lilligans. He's going to be down there. He just took a picture of the stadium, so we do have people down there. There you go. Perfect timing, Jim.
All right, that's good to hear. And let him know, like if he has some questions about RGV. That I'm willing to help him out on Twitter.
I will pass it along. I know a lot of the guys are following you after our connection on the last time I was on, so
yeah,
we're all keeping tabs on you now.
That's good to hear. All right, man. Well, thank you for accepting the invitation to be on the show, man. Really appreciate it.
Anytime.
And best of luck to both teams. Best of luck to you all this season. Not tomorrow, not on Friday though. But but definitely we hopefully we get to see you all at least be one of the potential playoff teams this year.
All right. That'd be nice if we can face in the playoffs when it means something.
Especially if it's down there in South Texas. That way I can actually make it to the game. When I found out it was gonna be a Friday, it's like, oh no, and then the worst part is it's the week where all of our projects of work have to be due. So leaving early that on Friday is going to be almost impossible. But oh well. All right, man.
Cool. I have a good one. Great show again.
All right, will do, man. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Good luck.
Good luck to you too. Goodbye. All right, so that was Mitch Morice from the This Is Silly podcast. Wanted to really thank him and thank you all of those who are watching us right now. We got 9 people watching. Be sure to drop a like on this video, share it with your friends, and be sure to subscribe to Down in the Valley on YouTube, obviously, but also we are on SoundCloud. We are on Twitter at Down in the RGV. SoundCloud is soundcloud.com/downintheRGV. We also have Stitcher as well. Be sure to also check us out on Apple Music and the Google Play Store for the actual podcast. Be sure to also check out our friends at the Beautiful Game Network. Be sure to check out their website at bgn.fm. Follow all of the other USL podcasts like the USL Show, Sock Takes, Backchat Show, and many other really good USL-themed podcasts. And also check out our BGN sponsor, which is Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier for the MLS, USL, and NCAA. So we actually have a couple of questions here from the chat. So really thank you guys, whether it's from RGV here from Houston or from St. Louis. Really appreciate for you all to join us here on Down in the Valley. Thank you all for watching. And so we have a couple of questions. So the first one is, what are the expectations record-wise? And is .500 realistic? I would say that .500 is too low. I feel like we might actually get maybe .65. We might actually have enough to make it to playoffs and be a good challenge for the USL Cup. Granted, we also have to see what the rest of the Western Conference offers throughout these games, but I'm feeling really confident in RGVFC, just as long as we get things squared away as far as the attack goes. So one of the things I actually wanted to talk about is the fact that today there was actually RGVFC actually posted USL posted RGVFC's official 2018 roster, and it's actually pretty interesting. We talked about some of the players when we talked about the San Antonio match, but there's actually a lot of players here that have not been mentioned, and in fact, there's actually one that I actually received notifications at down in the RGV. He is an Argentinian, and his name is Matias Saldivar. Make sure to follow him at Matias Saldivar 9 on Twitter. I just followed him right now. So he is actually listed by the USL as a midfielder. He will be wearing number 7. He is Argentinian. So the official roster for RGVFC so far is we have number 1, Matt Sanchez, the Puerto Rican. We also have Nicolas Cordy, who is actually listed here as a Belgian. So we have, that's 2. I think Puerto Rico counts it as an international roster. I don't know. I'll have to check. So defenders, we have Kai Green, our veteran. We have Robert Castellanos, which you've heard Gerson Echeverry talk about. We also have Manny Padilla, who is another Dynamo draft pick. Victor Garza, who I feel was actually going to be more of a midfield this season. We also have Connor Donovan, number 20. Number 24, Derek Luke. Number 30, Omar Ontiveros. And number 32, Kyle Adams, the New Zealander. In the midfield, we'll have number 6, Jorginho James, the Jamaican. Number 7, like I said, Matias Saldivar, the Argentinian. Number 8, Nicolas Perea, who's a young Colombian. Number 10, Pablo Aguilar, who is actually going to count as an American in the eyes of the USL. He is of Guatemalan descent. We also have Jesus Enriquez, El Pichichi, the Mexican, coming in from the Xolos youth squad. We also have Todd Warden, another one of our veterans. And we also have number 16, and this one comes to me as a surprise. Richard Donkor, number 16, who is of Ghanan, who is a Ghanan. He is going to be playing the midfield. I'll have to find out more information about this player. This is actually really interesting. Now, what is more surprising for me, and I actually wanted to ask, but it totally went off my mind right now when I was talking with Gerson, is we only have one forward, and that is John Montano. And that is the player that was playing on the right wing against San Antonio. And that is really troubling, the fact that we right now only have one attacker that is official part of the roster, and he has not been playing that position. They released Francisco Pungo last weekend. They released Francisco Pungo. That opens up an international slot for RGVFC. So the question that I was given by the Texas Soccer Journal, and I want to give him a big shout out because he's the one that notified me and Carson about the roster. But his question was, will this signify that we'll be seeing Max Steves coming down to RGV from Houston Dynamo? And my question to be for that is that I find it unlikely, because the Dynamo also has that problem of lack of depth in the forward position. We only have as a true forward, besides Max Steves, is Mauro Manotas. And so we saw that moving Albert Thalys to the striker position, we lose that firepower. So I'm pretty sure that Max Steves is going to be staying in the Dynamo. He might get some minutes in RGV, maybe, but we'll have to see what happens, what the Dynamo decides, because they usually decide on a week-to-week basis who moves down and who goes up from RGV to the Dynamo. Totally. Oh, another question is, will we be seeing a lot more of Charlie Ward coming down and all these other ex-RGV players that are not getting minutes with the Dynamo? Will the Dynamo be more willing to send these players down to get some minutes? And I've mentioned it before, is that having minutes is extremely imperative for these players to, when the Dynamo requires of them, whether it's Open Cup or due to injuries, that they need minutes to be able to get used to to playing, to have match fitness, that don't get tired too easily, or for example, not making as many mistakes as they would when they're not playing. So Charlie Ward is an example of a player that I would love to see down here, because I mean, they don't call him Clockwork Charlie for nothing. So Harry asked me a question. He says, does Coach Echeverry have a better feel for RGV than the previous coach, Junior Gonzalez? Definitely. He is more involved with the community, more involved with the fans, more involved with the media than Junior Gonzalez. Junior Gonzalez had the same recycled crap every week. Oh, we know what we did wrong, or we'll be fixing it. And that's all he said. That's all he said every time that there was a video interview of him. That's all he said. He never left that script. Whereas Gerson, he's more open to more truthful, more honest about what he sees out on the field, what he liked, what he didn't like. And so that gives me that big difference in the accountability. That's one of the words that Mitch Morice said about their new coach. But the accountability and the transparency from this coaching staff is miles better than what we had under Junior Gonzalez. And thankfully, I'm really thankful that he took the job with LA Galaxy. And it might sound horrible for me to say it, but, you know, that's what I feel. And even though a lot of people, when they first announced Gerson, felt really like, wait, you're bringing us a coach from college? You know, you have to give him a chance. And if first impressions, are, as they say, very important, I think he passed, with flying colors. Just all that knowledge that he has, and that specific kind of mentality and what he looks at for the players. He wants players that will never give up fighting. That gives me a lot more hope for this team than I did under Junior Gonzalez. Just the fact that we actually gave Robbie Sagel minutes, and I always keep on going back and bashing him, but that's how bad and unprofessional he was. So I just actually received note that we have 3 pairs of tickets to give out for Friday's game against St. Louis FC. And I will be giving out 1 pair right now on the show. And I'll be giving out the other 2 pairs tomorrow during the day on my social media. So be prepared. I will ask the question right now. So everybody who's here on the chat, who's watching, if you are interested in going to Friday's game at HEB Park for the season home opener against St. Louis FC, be sure to keep watching right now while I give the question, and you can win 1 of 3 pairs of tickets to this Friday's game. So be sure to also send us your questions as well that you want for me to answer. Another important information that I got is the fact that, all right, where was this? Oh, they actually sent us some highlights. Let me go ahead and put it up on the chat. So hopefully it works. Yes. Okay. So right now I just put on the chat what are highlights of Matias Aldivar. So you all be the judge. I have not watched it yet, but you all be the judge of Matias Aldivar whether he'll be a good addition for the club. Yes, Harry, you can go and root for St. Louis if you want. I don't really care what you do with those tickets or who you're going to root for, as long as you actually go to the game. That's all I ask. If you win the tickets, go to the game. Go support RGV, or go support St. Louis if you want. Or just go there and watch just a good soccer game. So let me go ahead. Let me go on break while I think of the question, and we'll be back to close out the show. Don't leave yet. Oh, be sure to also drop in any questions that you have or anything you want to talk about. Do you want me to talk about CONCACAF Champions League? Do you want me to kind of vent about what I saw yesterday with Tigres? What do you think of this surprise that 2 MLS teams have already eliminated Liga MX teams from the CONCACAF Champions League? So we'll be back to close out the show. Don't go away just yet.
Hey, my name is TJ Kasner, and you're listening to Down in the Valley.
I'm Christian Quintero, and you're listening to Down. All right, so welcome back. So it's going to be an easy question, very easy for you all. So we know that we got a new player. We got a couple of new players. So my question is, what college did Kyle Adams go to? What college did he play at in his collegiate career? The first person to answer me in the chat will win the first pair of tickets to Friday's game. So, on your mark, get set, go. So Harry says he's not able to go. Have a good night. We'll watch again on the podcast or on the YouTube channel. Harry, thanks a lot for joining us, man. It's a pleasure for you to watch this podcast and give us the benefit of the doubt of being able to provide you with USL news. So we still haven't gotten anything yet. So LB says that last year's record was 9-8-15. I would say we will probably get 14 wins. All I gotta say is that we're not gonna get 15 losses. I'll leave it at that. If anything, we're probably going to get like 8 losses and a little bit more wins as well as ties, but not that many losses. In fact, I would say like maybe at the most 8 losses this next season. So, guys, I still have not gotten any answers for that question. I will leave it out there. So, let's go ahead and go with some USL news. If there are any, let me go ahead and access the USL website. One of the things is that apparently, so I was talking to Carson, if y'all kept watch last time, that Las Vegas lost Edgar Gerardo Lugo. Like he just stopped going, which is really surprising. But let's go ahead and talk about. So the USL today, actually released an article called the USL Top 5 Defenders to Watch. And in that list, we have none other than Kai Green from our own Kai Green of RGVFC. And so they go on and say, Green went under the radar in 2017, but put up some very impressive numbers for a Toros defense that had its struggles in the club's second season, ranking second in the league in tackles won with 73, while also racking up 168 duels won, 75 clearances, and 51 interceptions. Green maintaining his level will be crucial to the side rebounding back into playoff contention this season, but the 24-year-old should be one to watch over the course of the season regardless, as he's reunited with former Seton Hall University head coach Gerson Echeverry. So it's about time that a player actually got recognition from the USL, and he deserves it. You know, those numbers don't lie. He was one of the, you can say, the diamonds in the rough from last season. The few players that actually stood out, and it's good to have him back for 2018, and hopefully the fact that he's reunited with his college coach will be bigger motivation to do much better this year than what he did last year, which was pretty decent enough. Other players in consideration, of course, were Colin Falvey from the Ottawa Fury, Joe Greenspan from the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, Forrest Lasso of FC Cincinnati, and Paco Craig from Louisville City FC. So he's out there with some really, really good players. All right, let's check the chat. Harry, from my point of view, Prof. Echeverry is more prepared and better communication with players. Definitely. So I have no responses so far. So I'll go ahead and give out the 3 pairs of tickets during the course of tomorrow. And so be prepared. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Down in the RGV. Follow us on Facebook at Down in the RGV, Down in the Valley, facebook.com/Down in the RGV. Follow us as well on Instagram, RGVFC Fans, which I co-admin. Follow the Stampede, RGV_Stampede on Twitter. They also have Instagram, so be sure to check them out as well. Follow our friends from the Beautiful Game Network at the VGN. Can't even speak now. At the BGN FM on Twitter. Check out their website at bgn.fm, where you can check out my podcast as well as other USL podcasts like the USL Show and Sock Takes. Also check out the BGN's sponsor, which is totally lost my train of thought. Check out the BGN sponsor, which is Roughneck Scarves, who are the official scarf supplier for the MLS, USL, and NCAA. So we'll go ahead and wrap up today's episode right now. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, LB. Thank you to my dad, Javier Ochoa. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Ray. Really appreciate your feedback. Thank you, Johnny. And thank you, AB Vernon 80. Thank y'all for listening all the way from St. Louis. So we'll see each other next week. This Saturday, we will have a pregame match for the Houston Dynamo game against DC United. The game actually starts at 12:30, I believe, Central Time. So we should be going live early in the morning. So be sure to check that out as well with the guys from the Peel. Also, check us out on Apple Music, as well as Stitcher and Google Play Store. Check out the podcasts there. If you are interested in sponsoring us, be sure to contact me on my email at edson@downintheRGV.com. We will be providing, hopefully in the future, as the season progresses, we'll be finding more hard-coded data on how Down in the Valley is progressing. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. It's brand new, brand spanking new. This is actually going to be the first video on it. But that way we can actually be extremely focused on RGV. Also, check out my website, downathergv.com. We will be uploading articles about the games during the season, photos that we get, interviews. You can actually access our podcasts there as well. So check out downathergv.com. A big shout out to Cesar, who will hopefully have more time to be our photographer during the season now that, with his new job, as well as Ray Silva, who's also going to be collaborating with his articles on downathergv.com. So really appreciate you all for taking your time out of this Wednesday night to join me and Sean as well. I want to thank him, even though he's not here at the moment. He's kind of busy. So thank you all for tuning in. Like I said, go follow all of our social media. And I expect a lot of you, I expect the stadium to have a decent attendance this Friday. So be sure to go out there, be loud, and be proud of the Toros. And keep the banter friendly, of course, zero violence, and be very, very, very welcoming to the St. Louis fans that will be making the trip. César, hablando del rey del Roma, y aparece César. Dude, really appreciate it, man. Really appreciate your work that you did at the Dynamo game, and hopefully you'll be able to collaborate during the season with your photos. So until next time, my name is Edson Ochoa, and this has been episode 11 of Down in the Valley. Be sure to also leave your comments, because we're always striving to be better and bring you the best RGVFC coverage. At least that's what we're striving to. And itty bitty steps, but we'll get there eventually. Have a good night, guys. Dios los bendiga. We'll see each other next Wednesday. Or if you're a Dynamo fan, on Saturday. Take care.